Hi, this is Paul the Oaken Knight. Welcome back to our series on the drive on Giessen, where we're going to walk through the opening battle of the campaign. And we're going to start in the south. We have 4 battles for this early part of the AM turn. And let's just walk through the order of battle of what we have fighting over this particular area at this particular time. On the strategic map, we can see the battle zone that we are going to be looking at has 2 battalions of Soviets moving in. We have a Guards Motor Rifle battalion as well as a Guards Tank battalion, with airstrike coming and as well as some other division level support, including a Hind helicopter and some off-board artillery. For the Americans, we have a single company of the 11th Armored Cavalry supported by a Warthog. Let me show you just what exactly we're dealing with here. For the Americans, on the good news side, this particular company of Armored Cav has 3 platoons of M1 tanks. So, if you're going to have something, at least make it an M1, right? We have a self-propelled mortar. We have an ITOW vehicle, an improved tow vehicle, that missile launcher. And we have a Vulcan anti-air gun, so we can be taking shots at helicopters and aircraft that poke their heads in the wrong way. There is also a Warthog strike going to be available to us, and we have 1 unit that can be in an improved position, and we have 1 placed minefield. For the Soviet side, now you're going to see just what one of these Soviet counters actually means. The Guards Tank Battalion is right here. It has got 3 companies of T-80 tanks with the headquarters unit. So folks, that's 10 counters, 10 platoons of T-80 tanks. That's a good thing for the Russians. The second, the Motor Rifle Battalion, is actually a composite battalion that has swapped out 1 company of infantry and brought in 1 company of tanks. As we see, we have a company of 3 T-55 platoons, and we have infantry riding on BTR-60s, which are not that great. It's just basically transportation, but they make up for it by having they have a SA-7 available for air-to-air or ground-to-air, and they have a recoilless rifle to take pot shots at things. Okay. We also have off-board artillery, and we have a Hind helicopter. Not to mention an Su-24 Fencer. Now, because this is the first turn of the campaign, we're going to go ahead and give the Soviets the advantage in electronic warfare. That means they'll get a plus on their die when the competitive roll is done every time this card comes up. The normal thing is to have 2 end of operations cards in the deck, and we will do that. And we will use battlefield events, include weather changes and other such strange things that can happen on a battlefield. All right, to select the maps, what I'm doing is I'm going to allow the defender to have flexibility here. They're going to get to choose the ground that they fight on within certain parameters. I have 15 maps to choose from the base game plus the expansion pack. They give you all kind of stuff. So I'm going to make 3 random rolls. It's going to be from 3 dice, 1 to 15. Use a 20-sided die and throw out ones that don't fit into that. The defender gets to pick 2 out of the 3 maps, and they get to put them together as they will, as long as they're in the configuration you see in front of you. This is going to be the east part of the map. That's the west part of the map in general. The action is going to go from east to west. Looking at the map from the east, we see that it starts with a lot of woods with a single road going down the middle of the map. There are edges that can be crossed if they want to go ahead and pin themselves up against the edge or go slow through the woods, which given the breakthrough rules, they want to try to get off this map as soon as they can. We can talk about that, what breakthrough is, in a little bit. I don't want to go over rules in detail. I will just explain as we need to. Suffice to say, most likely they're going to be going down the middle of the map. Looking to the west, the terrain opens up it has a nice hilltop, which I think could be useful to the Americans, and generally decent fields of fire all around. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens once the Soviets break out of this constricted terrain. We've gone ahead and set up the map with the American Armored Cav in their defensive positions. We have elected not to deploy forward on this map. The objective here is to stay alive, do some damage, and get off this map in good order to fight another day. So, the way you see two objectives set, and the third one is down here by the Armored Cav. The way this works is that the attacker gets to set the first one, and then it's the second and third are alternated, so the defender sets the second, and the attacker sets the third. The only caveat being is that you can't have all three of these objectives on a single map. As I said, the strategic intent for the Americans is to give the Russians a bloody nose and then get out of Dodge. I don't think they can do anything more than that with this disparity of forces. Now, as I said earlier, I gave one improved position and one minefield to every NATO formation in the front line to represent some preparedness for this attack. We have placed the improved position on this hilltop. What an improved position does is that the first hit on the effective unit does not count. So it basically shrugs off the first hit out of every time it's attacked. So every single unit rolling dice on him, every single one of them, the first hit doesn't count. It's a good thing. But maybe even more interesting is we have this row of hexes down both sides of the map, and so we've elected to go ahead and place the minefield right in the middle of this to slow the Soviets down should they decide to go that way. And like all good minefields, what it's really going to do is it's going to channel the attack in the direction you want it to go. So we want them to go down the center road, or we want them to come down the other edge where at least we're going to have sufficient coverage to do some damage once they show up. Very tempting to go ahead and set some guys up here or even in the town. You have to be at least 8 away from the map edge when you set up, and the Americans could be here. My concern is that should the cards not fall right, they could really get savaged at close range, possibly even close combat, which would not be a good thing at this point. We don't want to see this American unit get all torn up. All right, that's the setup. We'll go ahead and talk about rules as we go through. So for right now, what we're going to do is go over to here to the deck of cards and see what the first card is. We have an air attack by the Soviets. Okay, so let's go through that procedure. The first step of the procedure is to see if the airstrike was intercepted, and for that we simply have to roll a die, and if a 6 is rolled, the air unit was intercepted and there is no attack. A 2 is rolled. The ground attack does happen. So now the next thing that happens is a target hex is selected. Okay, we have selected the improved TOW as the target. I think that there's a better chance to do some damage on that than trying to hit it on one tank, so we're going to give this our first shot. However, the next thing that happens is a single anti-aircraft unit may fire. We have the Vulcan up on the hilltop. The aircraft is considered to be at the same level as a flying helicopter, which is 2 levels above the terrain. So this is level 1 terrain. The aircraft is at level 3. The hills are considered 2 levels above the base terrain. So if this is level 1, the Vulcan is also at level 3. It has a straight and clean shot over to the Su-25. We could use the HE factor, which is on the right-hand side, or the AP factor, which is on the left-hand side. The AP has a range 7. HE has a range 4. Both roll 2 dice for 5s. So it doesn't matter. Let's say we shoot AP just for fun, and we're rolling 2 dice for 5s. And we miss. So the aircraft does get to attack its target. The aircraft As we see on the left, it's rolling for 5 dice for 3s or 3 dice for 4s. This is AP, this is HE. The target is an ITO vehicle, which is an armored target. It's slightly armored, but it is armored, so we may use our AP factors. So we're going to be rolling 5 dice, 3 or more hits. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 3 hits. Now this is a 2-hit unit, 2-step unit, so we have to roll some saving throws. As a light armored target and with a defense of 6, he's rolling 1 die for a 6 to save. The woods gives him a second die for a 6, so he's rolling 2d6s, and because he's got hit 3 times, and it only takes 2 to kill him, and nothing happens. So this guy gets blown up. Ba-boom! So as you see, we've replaced the ITO vehicle with a wreck. It took 3 hits. It only has 2 to give. So it's gone. We have a wreck in the place where the ITO used to be. The last step of our procedure is to roll 2d6. On a 7 or less, the fencer is out of 7 or less. The fencer is out of ordnance and is out of the scenario. Let's see. And a 8 is rolled, so the fencer can come around for another attack in a subsequent turn. We pick another card. Electronic warfare. Okay, we're giving the Soviets the advantage. They're going to get a +1 on the die. High roller has the advantage, the electronic warfare advantage, and may designate a headquarters for being scrambled. Since there's only one Allied headquarters on the map, we know who that will be. So Soviets are rolling against the Americans. Soviets get +1. Soviets win. Okay, next card. All right, the armored cavalry is active, and let's see what they're going to do. Okay, before the armored cav can activate, the electronic warfare problem is going to have its effect. That effect is that regardless of the radii of control for the headquarters, which for this unit is 5 hexes, as printed on its formation card, we had intended to have everybody in command. But if you're not stacked with a leader, which I'm not using in this game just to keep things a little bit simpler, or a headquarters, which this guy is, but nobody else is, then you have to roll to see if you're in command. This unit is a 7-point quality unit, so to pass, it's got to roll a 7 or less. And it appears the Americans have eaten their Wheaties today because each unit had to make an individual roll to get a 7 or less, and every single one of them did. And except for the guy up here with the headquarters, he doesn't have to roll. All right, so that's so far so good on that. Now the headquarters gets to try to see if it can shrug the effects of this electronic warfare. And to do that, it means to make a quality roll, which is also 7 or less. And we get a 6. So what happens is that the EW reduces. It still is in effect until in a subsequent phase it can be removed. So it's starting to go away. It's EW diminished. All right. Now, as far as what the Americans want to do, honestly, at this point, I'm not sure they want to do anything. So I think they're just going to stay put. They're going to stay on Overwatch, and they're just going to see what else comes their way. Next card is Battlefield Event. Let's see what happens. Basically, it's a table roll. I'll let you know what I come up with. Okay, the events table is actually 2 tables. You're rolling 2d6 on one, and if you roll a 7, then you get the fun stuff. This will have no effect. The Soviet Guards Tank Regiment is active. I'm electing to go ahead and exercise full control over both sides, at least at this point. I still want to try that solitaire system. I'll do that in some future game. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and run these T-80s right down the middle on the main road that leads over to the objectives. Nobody can see anything, so they're done. They've had their turn. Warthog Attack. Oh boy, let's see what happens. Now, if this isn't a vision from Warthog Heaven, I just don't know what it is. We got a whole line of T-80 tanks on the road. All right, so let's see what happens. Well, we're going to go after the headquarters one. That sounds like a good deal. So first we see if we don't want to roll a 6 or this attack does not happen. Just can't buy a break. I rolled a 6. No more Warthog. All done. It goes away. All right, since our Warthog has been chased away by enemy fighters, it is out of this battle. We retire the card for this battle. On to the next one. End of operations card. When the second one is drawn, the turn ends. So you don't know exactly when the turn is going to end. And the Motor Rifle Regiment is now active. Let's see where they're going to go. And the Motor Rifle Regiment has, or the Motor Rifle Battalion has elected to use the southern road. I think we're going to respect the minefield that was deployed in the north, and we're going to come at them this way. With we have our most fearsome T-55 tanks in the lead. Ooh-ah. Second activation for Alpha Company. The EW reduced status on Alpha Company does not come off until the end of this turn, so it is still in effect, and its units still have to make their rolls for being in command. Let's see what we got. And we had the mortar and the anti-aircraft unit go disrupted. The tanks, we still have our 3 M1 tanks. We've lost the tow vehicle, but the 3 tanks are all still just fine. We can now check to recover from disruption. Normally it's a 7 or less, but because the EW is still in effect, rally is on a 6 or less. So we'll start with the one to the right, and he comes back, and the one to the left rolls a 7 and remains disrupted. So the anti-aircraft unit comes back to life. Outside of that, I think we're going to stay put and see what happens. Soviet have an option to do an indirect artillery strike. They don't see anything. They have no observers, so nothing is going to happen. And the Hind wakes up. Let's see what we want to do with him. The Hind has opted to fly along the north edge of the map. Flying over the minefield. Hinds do not care about minefields unless they're landing on them, and continue down the north edge of the map at terrain level. He's at level 1, and so nobody sees this guy. The final card in the deck is the second end operations card. Let's go to turn 2. The M106 mortar rallied, and upon further reflection as far as what's going on here, nothing much good has gone on here. We've decided to pull back a bit, adjust our positions a bit. The M1 is pulled back from its forward position. The mortar has shifted over, and the anti-aircraft unit is still on the edge of the hill, so he's still up, but he's a little bit more out of the way and has some cover in the trees. So the Soviet Hind activated, and he is elected to stay put for the time being until the Soviets can present a more target-rich environment than him just flying out there all by himself. We also had the motor rifle guys activate, and they've continued on down the road. And finally, we had Alpha Company have its second and final activation of the turn, and they are not doing anything. We continue. End of turn card, that's the first one. Electronic warfare, we roll off. Soviets edge again. So, once again, Alpha Company has its brain scrambled with electronic warfare. We had Soviet artillery. Still nobody spots anything. No shooting. And it's battlefield event. The battlefield event had no effect given the current conditions, so we continue on. And we get the second and final end operations card draw for turn 2. In this situation, we've had something interesting happen. And that would be that our tank battalion did not get a move. So what happens is that for turn 3, we pull out one of the end of operations cards, and we put the headquarters for the tank battalion on that card. What that will do is that the turn will not end until the tank battalion's card is drawn, because they're holding one of the end of turn cards. And at which time their headquarters will go on the map, and they will do their move, and the end of turn end of operations card that the headquarters was sitting on, that had been removed from the deck, will be reshuffled into the deck. So here's the end of operations card that we have pulled from the deck, and we've placed the headquarters for our Soviet tank battalion on that deck, and we've reshuffled the deck, and we're ready to go for the beginning of the next turn. Note that the electronics warfare counter was never removed, so it is still in full effect. It will be in effect at minimum, at least for the whole next turn, or this whole turn, turn 3. A second EW counter cannot be placed on the headquarters, so if the Soviets get the EW card again and roll to their advantage, it will have no further effect, so long as this EW situation is still going. All right, let's pull a card. Ha ha ha! Speak of the devil. Well, there's no effect because the EW is still in effect. They can't have two on the same headquarters, and we only have one headquarters, and it has an EW. Oh, trouble. Here we go. So let's see what happens. We've got the another airstrike from this fencer that's coming around for another pass. Note that the electronics warfare counter was never removed, so it is still in full effect. It will be in effect at minimum, at least for the whole next term. A second EW counter cannot be placed on the headquarters, so if the Soviets get the EW card again and roll to their advantage, it will have no further effect, so long as this EW situation is still going. All right, let's pull a card. Ha ha ha! Speak of the devil. Well, there's no effect because the EW is still in effect. They can't have two on the same headquarters, and we only have one headquarters, and it has an EW. Oh, trouble. Here we go. So let's see what happens. We've got the another airstrike from this fencer that's coming around for another pass. And just for grins, we're going to pick on another softish target. We're going to go after the self-propelled mortar that has redeployed into the town. What's going to go on, because the M106 has not done anything this turn, it's in cover, it's done nothing to reveal itself, it is considered to be concealed and will pick up a third die on defense. It gets one because of who he is, he gets another one for being in the town, and he gets another one for being concealed. So he's going to roll 3d6, and he saves on 6s as printed on the counter. We have the fencer coming in. He's going to be rolling six dice for 3s. Oh, this is painful. Let's see what happens. First thing that happens is that we get to see if some friendly F-15 chases this guy off. Let's check. Not this time. Second, we get to shoot with the anti-aircraft unit that does see this guy coming. He's going to be rolling two dice, looking for 5s. Can't touch this guy. All right, he comes in. He's got his 6 dice, and this is not looking good. All right, here's our 6 dice. Rolling for 3s. He's got 1, 2, 3 hits. All right, just as before, the only difference is we get to roll 3 dice on defense. 3 dice on defense. Looking for 6s. Nope, can't buy a break. We got 3 hits. This self-propelled mortar blows up real good. We put a wreck marker in the hex, and we roll to see if this guy's going to come around for yet another pass. Yes, this is one stubborn This is one stubborn fencer who has a lot of ammo. He's going to be coming around in a future term, more likely than not. All right, we pulled the artillery, the Guards artillery card for the off-board Soviet artillery. They still don't see anything, no shot. Alpha Company activates. They have gone ahead and tried to deal with the EW, no good. And we've got 2 units out of command as a result of missing their die rolls. Let's see what happens next. I think I'm going to just stay put for now. I'm starting to get itchy feet, but let's see what happens. All right, we picked battlefield event. Nothing happened there that was noteworthy. Alpha Company. We did not get rid of the EW, and we just shifted around some of the out of command. Some guys rallied, some guys lost command, and so it's just continuing to be a pain in their backsides. The helicopter, the Hind, he's waiting for friends. He doesn't want to run out there all by himself. Finally, we get the Guards Tank Regiment activates. That's the one that we've reserved on the card. So what we're going to do is this end of operations card will be shuffled into the deck. The headquarters can be placed on any unit in the formation. So we're going to kind of stick them in the middle, and they get to move. The tankers continue on down the road. Still nobody sees them, though we're getting very, very close. The X's denote that they have activated, and so they're not eligible for opportunity fire. We should have been doing this whenever anybody moved, but now that we're getting close, I'm actually going to be doing that. And our Guards Motor Rifle Regiment has activated, continued down the road. I threw some X's on there, and finally we have end of operations, end of turn 3. The lead T-80 declares a moving fire. He gets to move up to half of his move and then shoot with a detriment, especially for Soviet tanks, because they have a bit more of a detriment than the Americans do. But they still get to shoot. The Americans sees the T-80 clearing the woods, and he opts to take a shot. Being out of command has no impact on his ability to do opportunity fire. The shot is made. He's rolling 4 dice. He's rolling 4 dice, 5s or 6 hits. The defender is rolling 4 dice, 5 or 6 saves. 4 dice, 5 or 6 saves. In this game, folks, T-80s are not pushovers. They're very dangerous tanks. So, the die rolls, we got 3 hits, we got 2 saves, 1 effective hit on the T-80s. The top unit goes disrupted. The second pair of T-80s round the bend. They opt to do a moving fire. They move up their half their movement, and they're going to shoot at the same target, who has used his action with his opportunity fire, so he will not get another opportunity fire shot. The T-80 its base is to roll 3 dice, and it hits on 4s. Now, in this case, because it was moving, it loses one of those dice. But he's also going to do a volley fire. He's stacked with another T-80. They're both going to fire together. What that does is add 1 die back. Both units become exhausted for the turn. So it's still going to be, he starts with 3 dice. He goes down to 2. He comes back to 3. So he's got 3 dice shooting for 4s. The M1 on defense is shooting for 5s, but he's got his 4 basic dice plus 1 for being in the town. Let's see what this does. All right, the T-80s have, oh my lord, they have 3 hits and no saves. This is it. This is it. 3 hits and no saves. That brews up the M1. This is turning into a complete and total wipeout. I think it's absolutely better part of valor time for the Americans. Whatever that means, they just can't hold, given all that's happened here. All right, let's we're going to continue with this. We continue with this move. Well, the only good thing that's happened is that the second end of operations card has come up. The electronics warfare problem is still in effect. They have not had a chance to rally out of it. Neither the Americans nor the Motor Rifle Regiment has moved this turn, which means both of their headquarters will pick up. We will remove 1 end of operations card, and we'll have two headquarters on it. Once next turn, the last of the headquarters is off that end of operations card. Then the end of operations card is shuffled back in, and then the turn can end. But not until both of these guys get to move. Okay, here we are at the start of turn 5. One thing to take note of is that the Americans don't really want to leave this map until turn 8, because if they do, then the Soviets will have been considered to have broken through this zone and will be able to move a second zone on the strategic map. So with what's left of the Americans, they really have to, maybe they need to run and hide behind the hills, and hopefully the Soviets will not be able to generate enough moves to get across the map. Honestly, at this point, it's probably the only hope they have. All right, let's pull cards and just see what's happening. Let's see. There's no cleanup to do. All the markers have been removed. We're good to start pulling. Americans. All right, we're going to roll for the EW. Nope. Man, that's a sticky EW. All right, we have to roll for command control. First the NAR. He's okay. The M1. He's okay. And the guy stacked with his leader. Oh, he's not stacked with his leader. Where is the leader? He got pulled, right? The leader was on the end of operations card because he didn't do anything last turn. All right, well let's stick it right where it was. That's a convenient place. The Americans don't have anybody out of command right now, so maybe they need to take advantage of it. And so what I've done is I've pulled everybody back. I pulled one M1 off the board. He's done, and we've got 2 units left hiding behind the hill. Hopefully we can. Hopefully that's going to take the Soviets long enough to get across this map, so that we get our 8 turns. We can pull out on turn 8. Let's see what happens. Okay, first the guards tank have moved. They got their card. Then we had the end of operations, followed by EW. Let's see who wins the EW roll this time. Once again, with their plus, they just barely did it, but with their plus from the scenario, the Soviets continue with the EW advantage. There's nowhere to put a new EW marker, but more importantly, the NATO is not putting an EW marker on one of their formations to mess them up. So, all right, let's go on to the next impulse. All right, the Americans picked their card. They're not doing anything. No battlefield events. The artillery can't see anything. The Soviets can't spot for their artillery. Nothing happens. But we can fly a jet. Here we go again. Let's see what happens with the fencer. All right, the U.S. Air Force did not shush away this attack, so the attack goes through. The Vulcan once again missed, rolling double ones, so their stellar performance continues. Once again, the Su-25 rolls 3 hits, but we're going against an M1. They get to roll 4 defensive dice, and they roll 2 save. So there's only 1 hit, which means the M1 is disrupted. Okay, now we get to roll to see does the Su-25 run out of bullets finally. 7 or less, they do. Jeez, they've passed that roll 3 times now. All right, they're still on the deck. They're eligible to come in a subsequent turn. All right, our friends in the motor rifle regiment got to move. They moved up and have been marked ops complete. The hind moves. It's moved up, is marked ops complete. And finally, we pull the second ops complete card. That's it for this turn. All right, we're at the top of turn 6. First card is end of operations. Next one will end the turn. Oh, the Americans are hoping for that one. But they don't get it. It's the tanks moving forward again. Soviet tanks move up another turn, and guess what? The next card, end of operations, ops complete. But unfortunately for the Americans, the guys that they really want to see slow down didn't slow down. The tanks are continuing to thunder forward. All right, that is it for this turn. Top of turn 7, the first card up is the Americans. They did not pass their EW rolls, so they don't get to degrade the EW. This one's been on there a while. So I think probably about the 3rd or 4th time for that. They pass all of their out of command checks because of the EW. You know, when you're down to 2 units and one of them has a headquarters, you don't have to do a lot of rolling. So it's only one roll that needs to happen. And they actually pass their disrupt roll, so they have they did a morale check, they had 7 or less based on the troop quality of the unit, and they do pass. Okay, so we're on to the next thing. The Americans choose to stack their M1 in the trees with the Vulcan anti-aircraft gun. What good it's done so far, but with the trees, they'll get another die in defense, and maybe they'll help them out if that Su-25 shows up again. All right, let's move on. EW card comes up. The Americans actually managed to win the roll, and we put it on the headquarters for the Guards Tank Battalion. So hopefully these guys in the lead will be messed up enough where they're just going to have to take a little time to screw their heads back on. This is one of the few good things that's happened this game for the Americans. All right, helicopter. I just don't like sending him out there by himself into the jaws of an anti-aircraft gun. He's just going to hang back. No sense in giving them opportunity fire at the helicopter at this stage of the game. Random roll. The battlefield event would have given the Soviets a free shots with one of their formations, but nothing is seen, so nothing happens once again. Second turn for the Americans. Let's try to recover just the disruption. Or is it already gone? No. Okay. So we try to recover the EW. Finally, we recover the EW. Okay. Now it goes into decline. The ops complete comes off. And they're going to sit there. Next turn is turn 8. Then they're going to leave. Guards artillery. Nobody sees the Americans. Nothing can happen. Guards tank. All right. So we have a situation where the Guards tank has to make morale checks. Not the headquarters, but everybody else. Let me take care of that. The operative number is a 6. Let's see. So the Soviets moved up as far as they could to keep, consistent with keeping their command in command control. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everybody's in command. Next time we'll have to move the headquarters units if we're going to be able to go any further. That is their move for turn 7. So it's just going to come down to the order of cards to see whether they're going to make contact with the Americans in turn 8. Oh, but here we go once again. Let's see what this airplane does. They have been a pain in NATO's butt. There we go. All right. Finally, let's see if an F-15 chases this guy off. On a 6. Nope. 2d6. Rolling for... we're rolling for 5s and 6s on from the anti-aircraft unit. 2 dice, 5s and 6s. Finally! Got a 6 on 1 die. All right, they get 2 dice rolling for 4s in defense. So they could shrug this off. 1 hit, and is it going to do anything? They roll a 2 and a 4, so the 4 negates the hit. So they come on in. We got 6. Let's try that M1 one more time. Hell, let's try the pesky anti-aircraft gun. Let's put him out of commission. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dice. 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 dice coming in. 3 hits. 4 hits. Ooh. Yes, 4 hits. Now he's only got a 6 on defense, but he's got trees, and we're going to give him concealment. He was just sitting there. And he saves 1 still. 4 hits goes down to 3. We kill off the anti-aircraft unit. Boom! So we're down to 1 M1 that has escaped off the map, and 1 still on the map, just barely hanging in there. All right, let's see if this aircraft runs out of bullets finally. A 9. No, he does not. This guy, he knows how to make his ordnance count. All right, next. Okay, we end the turn. First, that is the first end of operations card. So, nothing happens. Next card, Guards Motor Rifle. They get to move. They had the end of operations card in reserve. It's going to go in the deck. It's going to be the only card in the deck. So essentially, the Guards Motor Rifle is going to get to move, and that will end the turn. All right, let me do it. Just move them down. They're going to move 5 down, staying up with their wonderful T-55s in the lead. Okay, the Guards Motor Rifle unit is moved. We've exhausted the deck, or we will as soon as we pick this guy. And so we're on to turn 8. Now the Americans want to get off the board and close out this battle. Yes, they've certainly lost it, but at least we want to deny the Soviets a move into a second zone in the strategic map. All right, let me go ahead and take care of things. Okay, we're finally up to turn 8. The Americans are going to want to get out of Dodge here. I've gone ahead and moved off the Ops Complete markers. The degraded EW on the American company is reduced, is taken off the map. They finally shed the EW that they've been carrying for a while. First card up, the Americans, they leave, and that will end this scenario on turn 8. Let me go ahead and assess the damage, and we'll go on to the next battle. So here are the losses from the battle. First, the Soviets didn't lose anything. They exchanged fire with an M1 that just did a suppression or disruption. No permanent hit was sustained. So the Soviets have not lost anything. The Americans, on the other hand, were not that lucky. We can see that they've lost their ITO vehicle, they lost a mortar, and they lost the anti-air unit. And then in exchange of fire with some T-80s, we had one M1 platoon destroyed with some more bad rolling. Okay, now what I've done is I've recorded those losses on the sheet for the Americans. What I'm going to do is at every turn they're going to get a chance to replace losses. We're going to be doing some dice rolls for that. There's some ambiguity about the rules as far as how that's supposed to work in the campaign. Basically, one part of the rules makes it sound like it should happen every turn that you're rolling for replacements, and another part basically says it's night only. What I've decided to do is to go ahead and do it every turn, but I'm going to do it at a lower level. There's two different tables you can use. So if a unit has been in combat, I'm just going to say if a unit has been in combat, they use the table. It's harder to get replacements. If they have not been in combat, then they can use the table that's easier to get replacements. So these guys have been in combat. All these units that are dead are going to get to roll. The chances of them all coming back are in any given turn are not big. They might get something back, but I would not expect it to be a fresh recon company starting the next turn. It won't be. All right, we'll go when we get that far. We will take a look at how we want to do that. And so now we're going to set up the next scenario. We are going to bump up the line. Oops. We're going to bump up the line. We have just done this guy. Soviets win. They kicked the Americans back. Were not able to extend it to go into Fulda, but they did do a good job, a good number on the guys that were defending on Alpha Company. Now we'll go up the chain to this one to see what we can do with the next group. The next group going to the north. But for now, I think it's time to wrap this one up, and we'll move on to the second battle in my next video. So this is the Oka Knight, Paul, saying, have a pleasant evening.